Hey everyone, welcome back, and I have a new type video thing that I'm doing today. Tier list. Doing the tier list on the Ghost Adventures special episodes, and yeah, it's like this may as well be pretty much my Halloween video because I'm probably gonna be doing other stuff for Halloween, if not work or college stuff, so who knows. So to start off, I do have a couple rule things here. As you can see, I do only have like a certain amount of episodes. I don't have every single physical episode that Ghost Adventures has because that'd take way, way too long. I'm not kidding. I literally just went through the episodes and they have like 25 seasons and like a majority of them have at least like 8 episodes. A couple have maybe like 6. Or I think one season has like 5, but that's because it has like the one of the specials that we're about to see in here. So I created a couple rules for this. The first one being that it has to be a listed special, as in like if I go to like the Wikipedia like list of episodes, that it'll rank it as a special. And 2, it has to be something that I have to be able to actually obtain. And there are going to be a couple episodes in here though that do defy both of those rules, and I do have reasons for it that if anything pertain to other episodes that show up on this list, and also the kind of availability and kind of what those episodes were, but we'll get to those when we get to it. There are a couple issues though that I do have when it comes to the specials list, is that I think some of the episodes technically aren't specials. A lot of them were ones where it's like, oh hey, here's our pick for, most paranormal location or whatnot. Is one of those kind of like countdown type episodes, or just kind of like a highlights episode type thing. Kind of like a show reel. And then there's a couple as well. There's like the Hellfire Caves and the Curse of the Two Bends, or Curse of the Bend special, which is taking like a 2-part thing. Those ones I don't count as specials because they're treated entirely like intro and all as just regular episodes. So there's not much I can, do about those. I don't consider them as specials when they pretty much premiere pretty much at the same time as like general episodes. And then along with the 2, as you'll see, and if anything, you can kind of see them in my list, there are some of these that do violate the rules on what I had stated, but I do have, in my opinion, logical reasoning for that. So to start off with, we have down here the Montpelier Hill, the Hellfire Club building, which stands for the Ireland's Celtic Demons special. I can't remember the specific year that it came out, in my opinion, at least from what I can recall. But in my opinion, this is one of my favorite out of the specials and pretty much out of this list. I watch it all the time, and I've actually been to one of the locations that they actually went into there, which was Loftus Hall, which was the second location and pretty much the second part of the special. The first part being Montpelier Hill as shown, along with also, I can't remember the name of the cave. And then there's also that one house that they went to, and then also the castle. I'm trying to remember the name of the castle. It's one that I've seen before. Damn it. Can't remember off the top of my head. I know Montpelier Hill, though. And, I mean, there's a lot of evidence that they captured in it, ranging from poltergeist activity, including at Loftus Hall. There was Aaron's experience, especially on Montpelier Hill, which I want to say it's hilarious because I'm not that like screwed up in the head in my opinion, but at the same time, it's like that's not something that you see every day. So that's why I'm going to put this in A. So it's actually very high up. Actually, you know what? I'm putting that in S because we'll start off high. We'll start off high. There's a lot of episodes in here that can fill pretty much the entirety of the list here. Now, next up, and this is kind of violates my rule here, the first rule of it being labeled as a special. This is the return to Bobby Mackey's. Return, not the first time that they had been to Bobby Mackey's. I'll get to that in a moment. That, as you can see, does show up later on. But the return to Bobby Mackey's episode, the reason why I have it there, I consider it as a special because it is a return to a location that is known. Like, it's a place that in Ghost Adventures history, similar with a lot of other locations that are listed here, you will recognize it. If you've heard anything about Ghost Adventures, you know about this. You know about Bobby Mackey's. And the evidence that they had acquired from it, whether it be not even entirely poltergeist activity, but the demonic activity that has shown up from Bobby Mackey's, is just not something that you see in many other episodes of Ghost Adventures. And if anything, is a place that, to be honest, I'm surprised not many other people have like really gone to. The only other group that I've seen that have really done like a full, I'd say, true investigation of the place would be the Portals of Hell team, which is literally has Jack Osborne in it, for Christ's sakes. And even then, they didn't really do what Zach and them did, where they tried to call out specific demons or spirits that they knew were there, and also kind of culminating into Zach's possession, and if anything, actually Aaron's possession too, near the end of the episode, which it still scars him to this day. I mean, Zach, I think, made a video, was about a year ago, pretty much, again, having to state, it's like, we're not going back to this location after what they experienced. So, yeah, this is another one. I watch this one all the time. Again, starting off strong. That's going an S. Damn, they really put in, like, 2 S's in a row there. Like, these get uploaded randomly from, like, the File Explorer and all that, so it's kind of like, well, crap. This next one here, this is kind of another one, again, that kind of breaks the rule. You'll see a lot of these ones that are immediately breaking my rule, which kind of pisses me off. But that's how the File Explorer decided to work it. So, as you see, it says Caller Mine on there, but the thing is that that's not the location for this episode that I'm looking at. There's another one that shows up there, and it was the Washoe Club. And again, the Washoe Club shows up actually technically twice more in this list. And the reason why I have it is because it's the first return that they had done since the original documentary in 2004, and is a location that they continue to garner further evidence from pretty much all the time. And that episode especially is no exception, because at Caller Mine, they had EVPs and whether it be spirit voices or even just audio that they just couldn't explain. If I recall, in the mine, they were hearing like pickaxe against in the mine, and then at the Washoe Club, they were kind of starting to use the spirit box, and then that's where they were getting a kind of a surprising amount of voices that were showing up that, if anything, really solidified the spirit box as kind of a method of paranormal investigation and research that, if anything, still continues to this day, because this was like the very early kind of implementation of it back in 2009. There's not too much else I can really say about it. Sadly, this kind of breaks both of my rules, being that A, it wasn't listed as a special. This was actually in season 3, I believe. Again, this was in 2009. And the second rule is that this isn't one that you can actually obtain. This isn't one you can find. I don't know what it is. And to be honest, I have the episode, but at the same time, it's for my personal viewership and as my way of being able to kind of understand the evidence that they garnered from the locations. And plus, I mean, again, as well, I mean, it's like, it's a return to an iconic location and plus an additional location that they got, very good evidence from. I do believe I understand why the episode does not show up anymore. Like, it doesn't show up on Discovery Plus, and that's sadly going to be another video on here that sadly has that trend to it. I do believe I understand the reasoning for it. I'm not going to say why. I'm going to let that kind of go through till it's revealed. Due to kind of, it's a really good episode in my opinion, but compared to the 2 that we have and a lot of other ones that we have on this list, I'm actually going to put this more in B, because there's some of these that you're going to see that have a lot more evidence to it. This next one here, this kind of looks kind of weird. Not really much you can make out of this. This is actually a Plague Doctor mask. Kind of the one you'd see during the time of the Black Death, which kind of means only one thing when it comes to Ghost Adventures, and that is Pavelia Island. This was, I'd say, the first special that they did, technically first, like official special that they did, other than the documentary, which again we'll get to whenever. But the Pavelia Island special was a really interesting one, because this is one of the first times where they really went into like foreign territory. And not foreign as in like going over to Britain or a nation that has English-speaking people, they went fully all the way over to Venice, Italy, to Pavalia, which had kind of such like a cursed legacy to it. I mean, you have a combination between Black Death, tsunamis, and I believe there's a lot of other mass casualty issues that the island had faced to the point where they pretty much had an entire island, like section of the island. It's kind of a separate island, really. That kind of next to it, that's even connected by a bridge, where it's just a whole field of pretty much nothing that's just dirt. But the problem is, though, it's not dirt, it's just cremated remains of people. And that's actually something that they show in the episode. This is going to be a really high ranking one, too, because the evidence that they garner from it is very, like, unnatural. Like, they had a combination between auditory and poltergeist activity in the span of like 5 seconds, such as the case whenever they were on the in the killing field, if I recall correctly, and on the bridge they had a camera that was set up and a spirit that they heard running, which they didn't get audibly, knocked the camera over. Or not the camera itself, but a light. I think it was like one of those night vision, like, was it infrared floodlights? They had that like on a tripod and it knocked over. And then also later on in the episode, which is a notable part of the episode, Zach especially does get possessed, and this is one of the first times, really in the show's history, where we really see how negative spirits when they episode. Zach especially does get possessed, and this is one of the first times, really in the show's history, where we really see how negative spirits when they do possess a person can really negatively impact the victim, and sadly Zach ended up being that one. That's sadly a trend that ends up carrying to this day. But yeah, due to that kind of visual and even auditory evidence garnered from that investigation, I'm going to put this in A. And this next one here, this is kind of again, a later one. Kind of defies what I was going for in terms of the list I was wanting. And also kind of, again, defies my rules. There's a couple more here. There's another one, too, immediately after, as you see. But this is Goldfield Redemption, as in the technically third of four, actually not even third, this is like actually technically the fourth of fifth of 5 investigations that they had done at the Goldfield Hotel in Goldfield, Nevada. And this is actually one where they ended up having poltergeist activity that was directly shown on camera, along with intelligent spirit activity that, if anything, defied kind of known and even scientific logic up to that point, including when it came to poltergeist activity with, I think it was a shrub or plant that the Zach and the gang had brought in for one of the spirits there. One of the spirits directly said it's like, pretty much said it's like foliage, which were related to the plant, and then 2 different times had moved the foliage as a means of pretty much showing the camera that it's like, yeah, I can move this. And then later on, I think it was actually in the first night, there was also poltergeist activity where a rock was directly thrown from the ground and bounced off of Zach's shoe into another room. And they didn't just like analyze the clip in general to show that it's like, yeah, this happened, because it was directly in front of the camera that was aimed in his direction. But they also sent it out to a video, I believe it was a video editor or an analyzer generally, and then even a physics professor at a university, and both of them were like, yeah, this can't be explained, at least with general logic. And then I believe as well, this was a 2-part investigation, so this had like a second night to it, and there's another one that they did. I don't know, there's a lot that they do that. But it was very much an interesting one. There's obviously better ones that do show up here, but there's still such great and amazing evidence that they had captured from this one. And being that it's a Goldfield episode that still garners that much amount of evidence after all that time, really shows how much the goldfield means to them and how much they mean to the goldfield. So that's why I'm going to put it in A. This next one here, I know it just says Washoe Club because there's not really like specific pictures for like some of these, which is kind of annoying. But this is going to be relating to the Washoe Club final chapter. And this is the pretty much last one. This is after the death of some of their former, technically colleagues that they had known. Yeah, that do play a bit of a role in that episode as well, including the handling of certain evidence that they capture, especially later on in the night and even early in the episode when they were doing a daytime kind of investigation and audio analysis, and even some elements of poltergeist activity, including with a corridor that did have a significant year-based date on it. But yeah, it was a very emotional episode. Very much a great conclusion to a trilogy of episodes, and if anything, investigations of the Washoe Club. That is actually one of the places as well, kind of with these episodes, that kind of makes me want to kind of, at some point or another, go over just to kind of check it out, or even seeing if I could potentially investigate it. And due to kind of the content of the episode and the evidence that had been garnered from it, this is going to be another one I do believe that deserves the rank of A. Hey, look, we're back onto another more recent episode. Here is the Curse of the Harrisville Farmhouse. Now, this was actually a very interesting one, especially being that it had other investigators that I actually recognized, which were the Johnson brothers, Keith and Carl Johnson. And kind of them interacting with Zach and the GAC team, and also their means of garnering evidence, not just through technological means, especially even using like more, I want to say like archaic technology, but not technology that's really used these days. I'd say kind of more tape-based rather than digital-based, along with kind of a religious sense of investigating and conjuring, or more so saying, hey, come get me type mentality to it. There's a lot of evidence that did kind of come from it. Sadly, not that much that I'd say kind of warrants kind of the influence that the episode has. There are some elements of apparitions that show up in it, especially later on. I believe the second night, especially. And the first night kind of had more of a possession type kind of feel, especially when it was taking over Carl. But in comparison to, I'd say, the amount of these episodes that we had already seen, I think it's kind of more an episode I'd put into B. I do feel it was kind of a little overdramatic with it, and kind of relied more on the fact that it was a house and a location that was related to a big blockbuster film, rather than kind of on evidence that could be garnered. Don't get me wrong, I mean, there's still a lot of evidence that was captured from it, and especially in the second night too. But I just feel that there could have been probably more that could have found if it wasn't more so just based on like, oh hey, let's go kind of focusing on The Conjuring. This next one here, which one is this? Oh, the Trans-Alleghany episode. Now, there's not too much I really remember from this one, sadly. This was the first of like the many Halloween specials that they release pretty much like every single year, or almost every single year. That is, some of them they didn't, and if anything, this was the first. Actually, was this the first full one? This may have been the second, actually, because I think the first one was the Trans-Alleghany live special. So there's that, but yeah. So there's not too much I really remember from this. I do believe that there was still a decent amount of evidence that they had captured at the various locations that they were at. But it's just sadly not one that I really recall too much, in my opinion. So I'm going to plan to put this more in C. Now the next one here, the first official televised episode of Ghost Adventures back in 2008, which was the first investigation of Bobby Mackey's Music World, and pretty much what ended up causing pretty much, I'd say the level of demonic activity at the location is especially now known for in comparison to when the quote unquote well had been dug up in the basement. If any of you were familiar with that episode, this one was in my opinion, an incredible episode, especially being that it's the first episode of the whole show in general. You know, again back in 2008. And this literally premiered immediately after a rerun of the documentary. I even recall that like they had like a whole shift thing transition that pretty much said it's like, oh hey, we have new equipment and you know here's our new investigations. And then boom, there's the Bobby Mackey episode. And the evidence that they captured from it there was incredible, especially with the technology at the time and also Zach. But yeah, in my opinion, that was like one of my personal favorite episodes, and similar kind of with the return of Bobby Mackey's episode. There was the black mass that they had gotten in the one room. There's Zach getting scratched on his back. I mean, that was like one of the first times that I think I'd ever heard of something like that happening. I mean, I never even knew that you know could have like a physical impact on you until that episode came out. And then even if I'm recording, even the voice communication there near the end, there's a lot of stuff that came up near the end, especially, and it kind of seemed to all revolve more so around the demonic ritual that ended up leading to the reason why the place is so infamously known. So that's why I'm going to put this, similar with the return episode, in S. Get a drink here. Alright. Ghost Adventures Serial Killer Spirits. Now, this one, kind of like the other 4-part series thing that they kind of have done, and a couple of the other specials that are going to be showing up here, is very hit or miss with the episodes. I believe there's the H.H. Holmes episode, and then I think the Ted Bundy episode. Those are kind of the two that really had like a lot of stuff going for it. I think all 4 did, but those 2 especially really had a lot of stuff going for it. So in terms of it's a content and like evidence that they had generally garnered from those and kind of the memorability of it, I kind of put this more in the rank of B. All right, now what is this? Horror at Joe Exotic's Zoo. Now, I'm going to put this one really short. I'm just going to put this automatically in D. Like, I'm not trying to be like a piece of shit about it, but it's like, the only reason that one was made is because COVID happened, and like, during the time, like, guess what everyone was watching was that Joe Exotic, like show that was on Netflix at the time, and guess what? No one freaking remembers it anymore. I'm just going to be honest. I think I've only watched that one, like, twice. Like, in terms of, like, out of all the specials, like, in episodes that are here, like, that's probably the only one that I'd say is, like, actually, like, really bad, in my opinion. Like, the only thing, in terms of evidence, I don't even remember, like, evidence that they caught from it. Like, the only thing that I remember is, like, people were like, oh, hey, there's, possibly dead bodies that are going to get like dug up or something. I don't even know if they found anything from that. And then like the one shot, for some reason, I don't know why I even remember this one, but it's literally just like a shot, like the most dramatic shot of just a horse just taking like a fucking giant ass piss on the fucking floor, because for some reason they decided to put that into the episode. Like, I'm not trying to be like rude about it. I'm just saying it's like, it really wasn't that great, in my opinion, in comparison to, I'd say, all the other episodes that you're going to see in here. All right, next up is the Museum of Madness, and technically this is technically a 2-part thing. There's Museum of Madness, and then there's Annabelle's Curse, because they brought in the Annabelle doll in part 2. They both premiered at the same night, pretty much within the 2 hours of each other. But since they technically registered as 2 episodes, like the thumbnails were kind of different. That's why I'm putting just Museum of Madness and Annabelle's Curse as like technically connected. Museum of Madness especially had like a lot of stuff because he decided to do experiments in Zach decided to do experiments in the museum. especially with familiar characters. If I'm recalling, like Lady Snake, Bloody Mary, and I can't remember the vampire dude's name, but he shows up in one of the later documentary specials down the road there, and then also Patty Negri, who shows up, kind of a little tense moment between her and Lady Snake, being a considered white witch and a dark witch going against each other. Yeah, that never ends well. But yeah, the evidence and kind of the activity that shows up in the museum is not something that I expected to see whenever I was watching it, like Halloween night. And kind of seeing how dark things can get inside the museum when you kind of combine all these forces into one. So that's why I'm going to put this more so in A category. It's a really good one. I watched it, I don't know how many times. And then I actually should probably explain the Annabelle's Curse episode too. So the Annabelle's Curse, the infamous Annabelle doll had been brought over by, I believe, is a direct descendant, if not relative, of the Warrens. And Zach decided to kind of do like, a communication session just to see, it's like, all right, is this doll actually haunted, yada yada. And he was specifically told, don't touch the damn doll. And if you tell him not to do something, he's going to do it. It's Zach. So he ends up doing it. And then actually by the end of the episode, he actually recalled that, yeah, hey, look, something just, lightning just struck my car. There's no storms or anything, but lightning just struck my car, like, immediately after dealing with the doll. So, yeah, all that fun times. And then also they had, I believe in the Annabelle's Curse episode too, they had the part where they had some people who I believe won a contest go in and investigate in the museum after all that shit had happened. And just to see, it's like, all right, can they find anything? Or are they just going to get spooked by, like, something else in the museum? And I think half the time they're just them getting spooked. Now, this next one here, Ghost Adventures Cecil Hotel. This is actually a really interesting one, and if anything, was actually like one of the main reasons that me and my parents actually decided to get Discovery Plus. Pretty much because, like, we thought just everything would be on there and not on, was it on Philo? since Discovery, since everything had to go into streaming, they need to make specific content only for that platform that won't go anywhere else. So it makes sense. But that one was actually a pretty decent one, I'd say, in terms of evidence and other means of research and investigating the location, and especially with some very mysterious issues that the Cecil Hotel especially has had. I mean, I think a lot of us are familiar with one of them. I'm not going to say which one, due to kind of the liability issue of the case. But I think there was kind of a lot that happened in there. There's some elements that I can't remember off the top of my head. I do recall that actually being a really decent 2-hour special. And I think the interesting part, too, is that this wasn't actually a Halloween special, too. This was a one, I think, that premiered on January 1st of, I think, 2020. Or actually not 2020, 2021, I believe. Now, this next one here, The Demon House. Now, this isn't obviously Ghost Adventures, but it's produced by Zach Bagans. It has Billy, it has Jay. The only one I'd say that doesn't show up in terms of the main team is just Aaron. So technically, it's pretty much a Ghost Adventures special. If anything, it's not even just like a episodic special. I mean, it's a whole documentary on a specific case that they have. And I mean, I was just watching it earlier, and there's still a lot that kind of, it's kind of a double-edged sword with it. There's a lot that kind of shows that, yeah, there's something horribly wrong with the house. There also was Zach for demolishing it. and that includes the shadow figure in the voice that shows up near the end, and how the house affected Zach and members of his team, including one of the cameramen who just pretty much had pretty much a demonic possession against him. And even in the uncut version and the was in the lost tape. They're pretty much the lost files, I'd say. If anything, actually shows even more into the demonic nature of the house. I mean, even showing it's like with that one camera guy who had the possession or the oppression issue, even taking a polygraph test, and they pretty much the polygraph pretty much saying it's like, yeah, he's not lying when this shit happened. So yeah, I'd rank Demon House actually in A, because that was actually a really, really decent one. Now the 2021 Goldfield Final Chapter Halloween Special. Now this one was a pretty damn good one, in my opinion. Not as good as a couple other ones that'll show up in here, but still really good. I mean, I like the evidence that they're able to get, and even kind of the new information. Like every time that they go to the Goldfield, there's more information that they're able to dig up. And even like information that came out between the Redemption episode and this episode, and the 2-hour special, and then also kind of culminating into the second, into not just the 2 nights that they were there, which the first night having, I believe his name was a Chris Fleming, his kind of possessive state, and then even going into Aaron's possessive state, which ended up attacking Billy in like one of the most, I'd say, horrific, like, acts of, kind of negative spiritual attacks in, I'd say, the show's history. But even into the second night too, which was Zach going down into the basement of the Goldfield Hotel and getting so scared to the point where he's screaming like hell and runs directly into a wall. Yeah, I'd very much easily recommend watching that if you ever get Discovery Plus, to watch this one, especially with how much activity and kind of the history of the Goldfield. Now this one, the original Ghost Adventures documentary from 2004. If you want to know anything about paranormal investigating or ghost hunting or positive negative spirits, etc., watch that documentary. Like, even though it incorporates like use of old technology, like old tape recorders and old night vision cameras that are literally just like the black and white night vision, all that fun mess, it's still something where there's so much that they catch and are able to get like out of that it is just phenomenal. I mean, it's like the Silver Queen Hotel with the spirit with the shadow form there, the Washoe Club and the apparition. Like everyone remembers. Like if you know anything about, again, Ghost Adventures, you know of this documentary. You have the Washoe Club and the apparition. You have the cemetery and the cemetery lights there that Aaron gets. I'm actually watching the documentary right now. You had the miner's cabin and the EVP that they recorded there. Actually multiple EVPs, because there was actually multiple that they got. And then obviously, everything that happened at the Goldfield Hotel being the first time that they had ever been in there, and the activity that they had caught in there, some of which is just beyond phenomenal and also scary as hell, because not something that you expect to ever encounter. And this, again, like, this was in 2004 as well. The first televised episode, the first Bobby Mackey's episode, was 2008. So in 4 entire years beforehand, before the release of the episode, and they're just, the amount that they caught in it is just amazing. This is like, in terms, if this is technically registered as an episode, this is like the best. This is like the #1 episode out of like the entire series, and I'd say, in my opinion, I don't think anything has been able to fully top it, other than kind of the Bobby Mackey episodes kind of rolling around there. But I'd still say that this is still the top of the top. I mean, if I had like a double S rank, which I think would probably be a legal hazard to have, that's where the documentary would have gone. Now, The Devil's Den. This is actually the one that just came out. I am recording this on the 17th of October, So like right before I think a two-part like investigation thing is about to show up here. Um, but Devil's Den actually came out like right at the direct end of September or like the 1st of October. Let me look at dates here. It's a Thursday. Oh, so yeah, like the 29th of September. There, yeah, it was like literally right before October. I don't know why they did that. That's weird. I'd say that's a really good one too. There's a lot of unusual things that show up, especially with that one Room 20 that Jeff Conkle, one of their new team members, and I believe one of the tech operators or manufacturers as well, uh, was kind of dealing with his own state of, if generally I'd say, is demonic oppression and even potentially possession, depending on the state of the issue, and even with other members of those who had been incarcerated in I believe, the correctional facility, or either going into room 20 or having negative experiences in there. And then even the first night of the investigation, where they're all pretty much turning on each other, getting pissed off, and pretty much showing a very negative state of energy that was in the location, that ends up actually culminating in a shot going down a hallway in night vision with Zach holding a chair, like a plastic chair, walking there in like fear, in him stating that he believed that he was pretty much in a riot at that point, fearing for his life, and possibly wanting to use that chair, that if he spotted anyone, he was going to attack someone with the chair. And then that also culminating in night two, with what Jay had dealt with, and even the rest of the team as well, getting near pissed off at each other then, especially right before Jay had to call and pretty much tell him, like, yeah, you locked me in this building, but I kind of need out now. And him just pretty much not even talking after he got out, just laying down, just being like, yeah, this place ain't right. This is a really, really good one, so I'd also put this in A. You're probably wondering what this shot is here. This is, I can't remember the name, it was a Longfellow's Inn or something. This was the Valentine's Day special. This is like, I don't even remember what year it was. But this shot here is a shot when Zach, I believe, was reading a poem that he was like either had written or he found on the internet, I don't know. He was reading it, and he was kind of just doing a shot, kind of just show. It's like, oh, this is how it is, a Valentine's Day special. Didn't realize that there's still ice on the ground, and then falls on. In terms of stuff from it, I want to say it's like similar with the Joe Exotic episode, being that I do believe that there was more from it, and especially at the end, there's a lot that kind of goes into the mystery of the location. I'd put this more in the C category. I don't remember too much from it, but I remember it still being like a relatively decent episode. Now, the Deadwood. Deadwood is an interesting one. That's another one of the Halloween specials. And went to a few different locations. Obviously, the one being the Bullock Hotel, which I believe was the first one that they went to. And they had some interesting encounters there, even during the daytime, when one of the guys Zach was interviewing almost got pretty much into a fight with Zach. And then it pretty much culminated into different, I'd say different areas of evidence. I don't really recall too much from Deadwood. But I especially recall one point when they're pretty much like freaking out due to, I think, what was it a gunshot, I think? I can't. It's one where I probably will have to rewatch it again, but I recall it still being relatively decent, so I'm actually going to put this in B category. Here's where we start to get kind of more into the obscure ones. Well, technically not this one here. Quarantine. Ghost Adventures Quarantine. This was back in 2020. This was actually pretty much handmade by them, by the main four, instead of it being with, like, I think Jeff Bellinger and them as kind of like a crew of people. No, it was just them, and they pretty much all had to sleep on the premises of the Haunted Museum. And they had a 4-episode kind of mini series. I think this is like one of the, not the first ones they did, because the first one they did was the Serial Killer Spirits, which I think was just a year before. Or actually, no, they had a few other ones beforehand that technically counted, but this is one of the first ones outside of Serial Killer Spirits where they had kind of a, it was kind of registered as a separate series. It was kind of weird. But the episodes, in my opinion, were excellent. I mean, it's like the first episode in general was amazing, and kind of seeing like, you know, how the museum was being affected by the COVID pandemic and how other people had been affected who had visited the location even beforehand. The second episode, which I believe was the Conjuring experiments, was also an excellent episode, and kind of the history, especially of the one set of machines, which terrifies me. The third episode, I don't entirely, was it the second or third? Actually, I think the third episode was the Conjuring experiments, because I think the second one was the expansion episode. So I don't recall too much from the second episode, but the third episode was amazing. The fourth episode was also a really good one, because that's when they opened and were carrying around the Dybbuk boxes. Yeah, I purposely put plural there, and kind of the hellscape that arises from there on. So yeah, this is one it was an amazingly terrifying 4-part series. I'll put that in A. Haunted, was it so Graveyard of the Pacific? I think I was in Astoria, in like Washington or Oregon or something. I don't really recall too much from these ones. It was one of the 4-part series. It was pretty much kind of a lead up to Halloween, and it actually led up to the Haunted Museum Live one, which you see later, which I'll get to. I mean, I don't really recall too much from this one. I don't think I really got too much. It was just kind of there. So, yeah, I might have to rewatch that one again. But until then, I'm going to put this in C. Hauntings of Vicksburg. Now, this is one I recall a lot more from. This one actually was, I believe, the year beforehand. Like, I think this was in 2019. I think this was in 2018. If I'm recalling correctly without bringing up dates. But yeah, the episodes, like, I think all 4 episodes that they had of this, they caught, like, a pretty decent amount of stuff per location. And in some of them, even having poltergeist activity that pretty much scared the team as a whole. And not even just poltergeist activity, like, there was the one in the doll store that scared Zach, and then Zach also having, I believe, pretty much a panic attack later on in that same episode because of like some demonic activity, I believe, that was up in that building. And then also, I believe the episode following that one having a giant like plywood board nearly falling on, I believe it was Bill Chappell there, who kind of does like an amount of like tech manufacturing and like a experimental equipment for them, and who also showed up in the 4th episode too, who did kind of quite a bit of experimenting, and then even kind of had some of his own experiences that he could not figure out, and he's just like, all right, I'm gonna just sit in the van. I'm good. But yeah, there's a lot in Hauntings of Vicksburg that I'd say was really, really good in my opinion. I can't remember too much from the 1st episode, but I recall that one was a pretty decent one, so I'm going to put that, I'd say, more so in B. This next one here is, again, one of the other ones that breaks my rules, which is the first return to Goldfield, which is technically their 3rd investigation of the Goldfield Hotel. Now, the reason I say 3rd, and I never said a 2nd, is because the 2nd investigation was actually a technically an event investigation where they pretty much had other people come in, and they pretty much invited people over and pretty much say, it's like, hey, you want to investigate with us? Well, come on over to the hotel, and a lot of weird shit happened. But this was the 3rd time that they had returned, and there's a lot of evidence that they had gotten there, a lot more negative evidence, I'd say, even compared to the 1st time and the other times that they had been there. Because this one, they had like EVP that was directly negatively against them. There was poltergeist activity involving I believe it was a rock hitting Nick's back when from the bottom of the staircase going upwards, and then even just shattering in the middle of a floor. um, and then again, I think I already mentioned the EVP and even other negative experiences that other people who they knew who weren't even a part of the investigation had dealt with even just right beforehand. The reason why I said that this one kind of really breaks my rules as well is the first one is that this technically isn't a special. This is just a regular episode, similar to that of the Color Mine / Watch O Club episode. And the second point though, this is also one of the episodes that you cannot find anywhere. I have it, but it's not on Discovery Plus. I don't know if it's on Philo or not. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I might know the reason, but I'm just gonna kind of just rest assured that my reason kind of just is there, and until any official statement comes out, I'm just gonna leave it the way it is. But this was a really good one as well. I'm gonna put this in A. Netherworld is I wouldn't even really call it as even like a Ghost Adventure special, to be honest. Like I just kind of put it there because it was like labeled as a special. But this is pretty much just like Zach just exploring like the catacombs in Paris. So there's not really much else I can really say about this. It's like just kind of there. I don't even know like where to even rank this. Like I don't want to put it as like D because it's not a bad one. Like it's actually pretty good, but it's like it doesn't really do much in terms of like ghost hunting or anything. Like at least that from what I recall. There was it did kind of go into the one mystery video. Like if any of you have ever seen like Rob Gavigan, if I'm even pronouncing this right, I knew him as Rob Dyke. When that was his name, but he changed it and all that fun mess. But he had a caught on camera series, and then that was like one of the main videos that was in that playlist was on that mystery video from the Paris catacombs where a dude just running around seeing weird stuff like on the walls and then dropping a camera in like water and just bolting. So I'll probably just put this more so in C. I don't really know what else to put it. Now, the Haunted Museum Live. I believe, this was 2018, I believe. I believe it was. Yeah, it was Halloween night in 2018. It was pretty decent, in my opinion. I'd still say there was like a lot that they captured. It's kind of hard to fully really maintain. I'd say like the evidence they have because they don't really have like a recap reel. Or there is an episode of it, but I have to find it because it's not on Discovery Plus, which is kind of annoying. But some of the experiments and things that they did and things that they were attempting were actually pretty noteworthy. It was one of the first time they tried to open the Dybbuk box. And then they had Patty versus Lady Snake again in the basement with Lady Snake already trying to do demon summoning. And then trying to bring Dakota, I believe Dakota from who is now a part of the what's his show? I haven't watched it in a while, so I have to find it again. But bringing him involved into that mess, and then yeah, that was an interesting time. But other than that, I think it was kind of just a live spectacle. Not too much, but still kind of decent stuff. Say kind of more so I'd say in the C category for what it was, because there's still kind of a lot that they weren't able to really get through. Like again, because it's very hard to manage when you have like a live event trying to like go through and then not doing you say that you're gonna say, oh, we're gonna open Dybbuk box and then not opening it and all that fun marketing mess. Yeah, just and not much you can really do at that point. And the last and final one, and kind of an interesting one to leave it on, is the Route 666 special. This was, I believe, 2017. Was there 2017? I think actually may have been 2017, if not 2016. The Halloween special for it, and they were at technically three locations. There's the DeSoto Hotel, which was actually burned down, I believe, about a year or so ago, which is in El Paso, along with the Concordia Cemetery in El Paso, and then also going over to Denton, Texas, to see the Goldman's Bridge. And there's being the demonic nature of the locations that they were at, and for that particular purpose, hence the name of the special, they did end up getting quite a bit of stuff, including at the DeSoto Hotel, which is one that I had even used as kind of like a reference in one of my more recent videos in Phasmophobia, with the ceiling with a ceiling fan that was on a chest of drawer or whatnot, or on like pretty much a table, really gets just straight up pulled down in like a true form of just poltergeist activity, just thrown, like, or generally pulled from the table down onto the ground. And then Billy's experience in the cemetery and seeing those weird figures in the background scared the shit out of him. And then going over to, was it the Goldman's Bridge and all the weird occurrences they were having there with that one gunshot that confused everyone, because it's like, wait, what? Why is that there? Granted, they're in Texas, but it's like, still. And then the attacks, especially on one of their crew members, and then later on themselves too, which ended up being very, very violent in nature. And even one of them, if I'm recalling correctly, even having Aaron just completely just thrown across one side of the bridge. So yeah, there's a lot that happened in this one as well. So that's one to kind of check out. I'm gonna put that one in A. I'd say it's a pretty good lineup. There's some that I missed. There's the Trans-Alleghany live special. I don't really recall anything from it, so it was like I physically don't recall like anything from it, so there's not much I can really say about it. Plus, I couldn't find like a picture thing for it, other than probably just the Trans-Alleghany just building in general. But yeah, and then again, there were a couple other specials that were probably registered in there. There's one, again, I think it was like Curse of the Bend or something like that, which is like a two-parter thing. The problem I have with it, though, is that it's like, those are just treated as, those are really just like regular episodes. Like, they weren't, like specials at all. Like, there's nothing to signify that those are specials. And again, as in here, in comparison to those, there are episodes in here that were also treated as just regular episodes that were not specials in any way, shape, or form. Such as, again, with two of the Goldfield episodes, the Washoe Club episodes, and then the Bobby Mackey episodes. But the thing about those is that those hold, like, generally just, like, significant importance to pretty much the show, as like, the show and more so the team as a whole. Like, there's a reason that I picked those, is that those hold like a significant pieces of history to the show, and that's kind of why I put them there. But other than that, I mean, that's a pretty good list. I mean, 4 in S and kind of most going in A and B, some in C, and then S, and then only the Joe Exotic Zoo in D. Which, again, like if you're gonna really watch, like, I'd say like even any Ghost Adventures episode, like, to be honest, you don't even need to watch like the Joe Exotic special, like, ever, in my opinion. Like, there's no real reason. I mean, there's like some evidence I think that I recall that's pretty decent, but it's like in terms of like a regular, like, even just like an entire season of Ghost Adventures, even older seasons and newer seasons too, it's like there's so much better like episodes than that one. So I wouldn't really waste time on it. But yeah, this is my list. If anyone else has theirs, this is, I believe, open. Not entirely sure how it's open. Probably just gonna like save a copy of this whenever I'm done recording. But yeah, if you have any other form of ranking, or if you're wanting to switch any of these, or if you have any problems with any of mine, I'll try and specify them better in the comments, because this I am recording this at like 10:30 at night on a Monday. Other than that, happy Halloween, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.